Well, welcome back, folks, to another episode of the history of the music of the 1950s and 60s. As I like to say, we're going through the soundtrack of our youth, and we're kind of listening to some of the old songs that we used to listen to when we were just a tad bit younger. So, as always, let's get started with Bob Seger.
Just take those old records off the shelf. I sit and listen to 'em by myself. Today's music ain't got the same soul. I like that old time rock and roll. Don't try to take me to a disco. You'll never even get me out on the floor. In 10 minutes I'll be late for the door. I like that old time rock and roll.
Okay, well, let's review what we talked about last week. Last week, we continued looking at the year 1965, and we listened to some of the songs that were hits, even though America was kind of still deep into the British invasion. First of all, we listened to Otis Redding's big hit, Try a Little Tenderness, which was later on used in one of the teen movies of the 1980s, Pretty in Pink. It was a remake of an old standard, but was arranged in a more soulful style that became one of Redding's biggest hits. We also listened to the Four Tops sing I Can't Help Myself, which really put them at the very top of the Motown stable of singers for that period of time. And they definitely challenged the British invasion. Great song. Then we listened to Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions, really unusual group. They were a very soulful group, but they were actually very strongly gospel. Mayfield had a very strong gospel background, and they recorded a song called "People Get Ready," which had a very religious influence and a really religious message. But it became kind of an anthem of the civil rights movement and kind of signaled the things to come with the coming Jesus music of the late 1960s and 70s, which, if you listen to Dwayne's presentation some months back, you know that he talked about this quite a bit. Then we listened to the Toys sing a Lover's Concerto. Remember the Beach Boys? It kind of started this Baroque pop sound. And it really came into being. There were like 4 or 5 big songs at this period of time that all used Bach music and transformed it into rock and roll. And this was one of them, one of the better ones, actually. And then the Supremes. We listened to the Supremes, and they became the biggest hit making group of Motown. They had 5 top 10 hits in 1965, including Stop in the Name of Love, which we listened to. And we finished up listening with the Righteous Brothers, who continued their string of blue-eyed soul hits, particularly the one with Unchained Melody, which just was a huge song and later on used in the movie Ghost, which we kind of saw snippets of as we listened to this song. So, with that being said, let's move on to our trivia question for the day. In 1964, Domingo Samudio and his band, who, by the way, dressed in attire inspired by Yul Brynner in the Ten Commandments, released a song which became the anthem of every garage band in America. What was the name of the song? Okay, I can guarantee you, folks, I've sponsored I don't know how many dances in my life as a high school teacher and administrator, and I think every one of them played this song. Domingo Samsamudio was a part-time carny and college student in 1961 when he decided to form a band which he called Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. The band played around the Memphis, Tennessee area in local bars, and Sam said he took the name Sham because he couldn't sing. That says it all, right? 1964, Sam recorded a song called Woolly Bully, which he had written at the Sam Phillips recording studio, and the rest is history. So the record was sold phenomenally. It sold over 3 million copies, 3 million copies, reached number 2 on the Billboard's pop chart. It was only kept off by the Beach Boys and the Supremes, and was the first American record to sell over 1 million copies during the British invasion. And it became one of the best-selling singles of the year in 1965. So let's listen to just a snippet of Wooly Bully. It's not worth listening to the whole song because it says the same thing over and over, but cute little cartoon.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Like I said, the song is the same thing over and over again, so you only need to listen to about a minute of it to get it flavor. I'm sure most of you remember that. Well, another big music genre that went just huge in 1965 was folk music, but folk music underwent just an unbelievable transition in 1965. Kind of went there, I'm not sure went there wittingly. By 1965, Bob Dylan had become the leading songwriter of the American folk music revival. He was a god to these folkies. He had been labeled by the media as the spokesman of a generation. But remember, we'd already talked about this before. He wasn't really happy about that. He didn't really like being put in a box, and he had become very disillusioned about being this folk music icon. So he decided to break with the folk crowd. And although he never has admitted it, I think he probably did it in a fashion that was designed purposely to alienate his followers. 1965, July, he appeared on the stage to great applause at the Newport Folk Festival. I mean, this is the Woodstock of the folkies. And an event he had played at to great acclaim during the last 2 years. And all of a sudden, he began hooking up an electric guitar, and they said it sent shockwaves to the audience because electric instruments were they were just like a terrible thing to these folkies. They were all acoustic. And then he played his new song, Like a Rolling Stone, plus 2 more songs. And one guy said it electrified one half of the audience and electrocuted the other half. That's pretty much a way to put it. There's all sorts of urban legends about this event. Some say the audience began booing Dylan because of his electrification of the instruments. Others said he was booing the shortness of his set. One legend has the old folk hero, Pete Seeger, having to be restrained from cutting the electrical wiring system with an axe. They claim he got an axe and was trying to cut the electric wires that ran to the amplifier, and they had to restrain him from stopping to do it. I don't know that happened. Still, another legend has that the crowd tried to attack Peter Yarrow, Peter, Paul, and Mary, because he wouldn't let Dylan play any longer. They kind of shut him down. It's just a crazy, crazy event. Whatever happened during this, what's been called the myth of Newport, Dylan had yanked the Band-Aid off. I mean, he said he was not going to go back to folk music. He was going to go electrified, and he would till this day. Later that year, he would play his new electric music on a world tour and was met with yells of Judas from the members of the audience. It would be 37 years before he reappeared at Newport Folk Festival, and then he would come on stage with the wig and a fake mustache to kind of make fun of the events of 1965. Dylan is something else. Well, let's look at this song. Like a Rolling Stone, folks, is Bob Dylan's greatest song. For years and years, it was labeled the greatest rock song of all. And people still to this day think it's probably one of the greatest songs that's ever written. Other than American Pie, there's probably not been a song that's been more analyzed in history. The song's title probably came from a line in the Hank Williams song, which read, "I'm a Rolling Stone, all alone and lost." It was written in a time when Dylan was very disillusioned. He was actually talking about quitting music altogether. And he wrote this song, and it's a song about waking up to the realization that all this idolization that had been fostered on him, all his material possessions, just absolutely didn't mean anything. And they only become important to you, once you realize you've lost them. Only then can you understand what really matters is what's inside of you, folks. That was what he says that he wrote the song about. Now, most people believe that he was writing about a lady by the name of Edie Sedgwick and Andy Warhol. I'm sure probably most of you know about Andy Warhol. May not know about Edie Sedgwick. Edie Sedgwick was kind of Andy Warhol's muse. They were the darling of the avant-garde sect of the 1960s. They were a couple, and the story goes that Sedgwick and Dylan may have had a relationship. A lot of people think Sedgwick was much more into Dylan than he was into her. Nobody knows for sure. There've been a lot written about this, but no one's really said anything for sure. Dylan himself may have been kind of the whole focus of the song, where he was talking about his own fall from the spokesman of the generation. Some people see it as a little bit about the abandonment of Southern blues music, which is kind of the root of all of Dylan's song. All we know is, as just like Don McLean, who wrote American Pie, he's remained pretty obtuse on purpose. So here's a picture of Andy Warhol and Edie Sedgwick. Of course, we all know Andy Warhol was famous for being famous. He was kind of the first person that actually was that way. Edie Sedgwick was a beautiful young girl who really got into drugs really bad. Apparently Warhol was just absolutely fascinated with her. She ended up dying very young. And apparently Dylan did everything he could to kind of convince her she needed to break away from all this, but didn't work out. So let's listen to what many people say is the greatest song, rock and roll song ever written, Like a Rolling Stone. It's about 6 minutes. I've got to tell you, I've got a story about this song. I was a freshman in college when my roommate walked in with a 45 record, and he said, "Hey, have you heard the new Dylan song?" I was not a fan of Bob Dylan, and I said, "Well, no, I haven't really heard it. Didn't really want to hear it, to be honest about." And he said, "You got to hear this. It's different." So he put it on the record player. We had a little record player in the room there. And folks, it was, I'll be honest with you, it was almost like an epiphany to me. I could not believe what I was listening to. It was just one of those songs that you can't put your finger on it, but there was just something about it that just really, kind of hit a chord with me for some reason. At that point, I kind of became a Dylan fan. I still have some problems with some of his records, but I'll have to say I really like this song. So let's listen to Bob Dylan, and the words are up there too, because sometimes he's hard to understand.
Once upon a time you dressed so fine, threw the bumps of dime in your prime. Then people call, say beware doll, you're bound to fall. You thought they were all kidding you. Nobody's ever taught you how to live out on the street, and now you're gonna have to get used to it. You say you never compromise with the mystery tramp, but now you realize he's not selling any alibis as you stare into the vacuum of his eyes and say, do you want to make a deal? How does it feel? How does it feel to be on your own with no direction home? A complete unknown, like a rolling stone. Oh, you never turned around to see the frowns on the jugglers and the clowns when they all did tricks for you. Never understood that it ain't no good. You shouldn't let other people get your kicks for you. You used to ride on a chrome horse with your diplomat, who carried on his shoulder a Siamese cat. Ain't it hard when you discover that he really wasn't where it's at? After he took from you everything he could steal. How does it feel? How does it feel to have you on your own, no direction home, like a complete unknown, like a rolling stone? Ah, princess on the steeple and all the pretty people, they're all drinking, thinking that they got it made, exchanging all precious gifts. But you better take a diamond ring, you better pawn it, babe. You used to be so amused at Napoleon and rags and the language that he used. Go to him now, he calls you, you can't refuse. When you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. You're invisible now, you got no secrets to conceal. How does it feel? Ah, how does it feel to be on your own with no direction home, like a complete unknown, like a rolling stone?
Okay. Great song, folks. I know a lot of people don't like Dylan, and like I said, I don't like a lot of Dylan stuff, but that is just an absolutely fantastic song. Well, Dylan probably didn't even realize that what he had done was create a whole new genre of music that we now call folk rock. But folk rock really emanates from Dylan's appearance at Newport and really this song. And it would become one of the major genres of songs for the next several years in American pop music. The first band to really be described as a folk rock band was a band called the Byrds. The Byrds started out as your typical rock band in 1964, playing out of LA. Their leader and their only consistent member, because they had a lot of lineups over the years, was a man by the name of Roger McGuinn, whose use of what was called a jangly 12-string Rickenbacker guitar kind of became the signature instrument of this new musical genre. It always had kind of a jingle jangle sound to it, which is, like I said, the signature sound of this type of music. One of their first big hits was Hey Tambourine Man, which Dylan wrote. And then they recorded Turn, 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 which had actually been written by Pete Seeger back in the 1950s. Kind of an odd combination there, since Seeger had come to absolutely hate, Bob Dylan now, and of course, electrification. They in turn recorded it with electrical instruments, gave it a little bit rockier time signature, and it became just a massive hit. These two songs put the Byrds on the top of the podium as far as folk rock status. They would inspire so many: Garfunkel, Donovan, the Lovin' Spoonful, the Mamas and the Papas, Joni Mitchell, on and on and on. The Byrds were kind of the first of these groups to do this. Hey Tambourine Man would go on to be the sixth best-selling single of 1965, reached number one. The group's follow-up song was Turn, Turn, Turn. Never got as big as what Mr. Tambourine Man did, but I like the song a lot better. It's comprised of the first 8 verses of the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes. Again, this whole concept of using gospel, biblical stuff in songs. I don't even know for sure that most of the people that listened to it at that time even understood what they were listening to. It would reach number one, also be a million seller. They had created folk rock along with Bob Dylan. The group itself was in constant turmoil, and because of revolving door lineups, they never really enjoyed the success it had in that first year. It didn't last a long time. Pardon me. The group would later be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1991. So let's listen to the Byrds sing Turn, Turn, Turn on the Ed Sullivan Show.
To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time of healing and grace, a time
So another group that kind of falls within this folk rock genre was Sonny and Cher. I'm sure you all remember Sonny and Cher. 1962, Sherilyn Sarkisian was her real name. She met 27-year-old Salvatore Bono, and music history was born. Bono, of course, was a singer-songwriter that had been working with Phil Spector, and he soon persuaded Spector to hire his new girlfriend Cher, as she became known, to start singing vocal backgrounds. You can hear her on "Be My Baby" by the Ronettes. "You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling" by the Righteous Brothers. She sings backup on some of those recordings. Soon Bono decided he was going to make an act out of the two. He thought, hey, we can become an act. Called themselves Caesar and Cleo. Really a stupid name, but soon changed their name to Sonny and Cher, which made a little bit more sense. They released their first album in 1965, which included the folk rock single "I Got You Babe," which became one of their biggest songs. Bono wrote the song, shot the #1, became a million seller, and they went on. They had 5 top 20 hits that year, but then their career just kind of stalled out. It just, went nowhere after that first year. And they kind of languished around for 4 or 5 years. Finally, 1970, a guy by the name of Fred Silverman, who became NBC's head of programming, was looking to bring television a more youthful look. He decided that he was going to put them on as a summer replacement series. He was kind of infatuated with these two, and that became known as the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, which I bet some of you remember watching. Became a hit in no small part because of the repartee between the couple. They had a tremendous act of Cher was always the smart one, and Sonny was kind of the dumb one. That was the act. By 1974, the show and the marriage pretty much fallen apart. But Cher, of course, would go on to become just a huge solo singing star, winning several Grammys, Academy Awards, still out there singing, folks. She's 77 years old, and she's still going strong. Sonny, of course, took a whole different route. He became actually a member of the House of Representatives for several terms until he was unfortunately killed in a skiing accident in Lake Tahoe. Like I said, Cher is still performing. A lot of people thought that they should have been into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame originally, but just this year, Cher has finally been nominated and appears to be ready to enter the Hall as a single act. But poor old Sonny just left behind, Well, let's listen to their big hit, "I've Got You Babe," in 1965.
They say we're young and we don't know. We won't find out until we grow. Well, I don't know if all that's true, 'cause you got me, and baby, I got you. Babe, I got you, babe. I got you, babe. They say our love won't pay the rent before it's earned. Our money's all been spent. I guess that's so we don't have a plot, but at least I'm sure of all the things we got. Babe, I got you, babe. I got you, babe. I got flowers in the spring. I got you to wear my ring. And when I'm sad, you're a clown. And if I get scared, you're always around. Don't let them say your hair's too long. I don't care, with you I can't go wrong. Then put your little hand in mine. There ain't no hill or mountain we can't climb. Babe, I got you, babe. I got you, babe. got you to hold my hand. I got you to understand. I got you to walk with me. I got you to talk with me. I got you to kiss goodnight. I got you to hold me tight. I got you, I won't let go. I got you to love me so. I got you, babe.
Okay, well, closely associated with folk rock was protest music, and protest music was really getting going in 1965, primarily because the Vietnam War, you recall, was getting pretty hot in 1965. A lot of protest songs were being written, but without a doubt, the most notable of these was the Eve of Destruction, written by a man by the name of P.F. Sloan. P.F. Sloan was a prolific singer-songwriter, helped write some of the biggest songs of this generation: Secret Agent Man, California Dreamin', which the Mamas and Papas recorded. Worked with Jimmy Webb, who wrote many of Glenn Campbell's greatest hits. He was a very well-known songwriter. Eve of Destruction was probably the most important protest song ever written at this period of time. And it was kind of like throwing everything on the wall and seeing what would stick. They tackled the Vietnam War, the draft, the Third Nuclear War, the Civil Rights Movement, the turmoil in the Middle East. Anything he could talk about, he did. Now, understandably, the conservative music media just went crazy over this song. They hated it because they said it's exactly everything that's wrong with the youth in America. Several major radio stations even banned it, which of course did nothing more than make it more popular. And that's exactly what happened. Reached #1 on the Billboard chart, sold millions of records. The singer, man by the name of Barry McGuire, and actually started his career with the New Christy Minstrels, never really had another big hit. By the 1970s, he had become a born-again Christian, and he's 88 years old now, but up until the recent years, he's actually still been out there singing, mostly Christian songs. So let's listen to Barry McGuire sing, without a doubt, the best-known protest song of the 1960s, Eve of Destruction.
Eastern world, it is exploding, violence flaring, bullets loading. They're old enough to kill, but not provoking. It don't believe in war, but once that gun gets holding, and even the Georgia River has bodies floating. But you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Don't you understand what I'm trying to say? Can't you feel the fears I'm feeling today? If the button is pushed, there's no running away. There'll be no one to save with the world in a grave. Take a look around you, boy. It's bound to scare you, boy. And you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. My blood's so mad, feels like coagulating. I'm sitting here just contemplating. I can't twist the truth, it knows no regulation. And a handful of senators don't pass legislation. And marches alone can't bring integration. When human respect is disintegrating, this whole crazy world is just too frustrating. And you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of all the hate there is in Red China. Take a look around to Selma, Alabama. You may leave here for 4 days in space, but when you return, it's the same old place. Ah, the pounding of the drums, the pride and disgrace. You can bury your dead, but don't leave a trace. Hate your next door neighbor, but don't forget to say grace. And tell me over and over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Ah, no, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction.
Okay. Well, you know, we've been talking about folk rock and all this and the British invasion the last couple of weeks. You might wonder, is there anybody left that was from the old era of rock and roll? Well, actually, there wasn't, but Gary Lewis and the Playboys were kind of, there's a term out there they call Nepo babies, children of famous people that become stars, mainly because of nepotism of their parents. I don't know if Gary Lewis was the first Nepo baby, but he might have become pretty close to being the first one. He was the son of comedic actor Jerry Lewis. His band probably would have never made any success if he wouldn't have been Jerry Lewis's son. Started out as your typical garage style band, but because of Lewis's connections, he got a job playing at Disneyland. And before long, people were playing or listening to it. They kind of caught the attention of a producer by the name of Snuff Garrett, who's a very famous producer. He had a song called This Diamond Ring that had been written by Al Cooper, who, by the way, was the guy playing the organ on Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone. He didn't know if it would go or not, but Gary Lewis's mother, Jerry Lewis's wife, said, I'll finance the thing if you'll produce it for him. So, there you go. Lewis and his bandmates really were only mediocre musicians at the best, probably a typical garage door. But, Garrett beefed it up. He took them over to Spector Studio. He used a wrecking crew to kind of back them up. He did all sorts of magical tweets with the instruments and with Lewis's lead vocals. The result was it went to #1, sold 1 million records. And of course, Ed Sullivan called and said, hey, you want to be on my show? Here's the problem. Sullivan had an absolutely strict policy that all acts had to perform live and they could not use any lip syncing. Well, in rehearsal, they listened to Gary Lewis and the band and they thought, oh, what have we done? This isn't going to cut it. So Sullivan finally compromised and agreed to let the band pretend to play their instruments while Lewis sang along with pre-recorded tracks. Amazingly, the group would go on, have first 7 releases reach the Billboard Top 10. They had 8 gold records, 12 top 40 hits. Pretty good for a band that couldn't play and lead singers that couldn't sing very well. So here's Gary Lewis playing the Playboys singing their big hit in 1965, This Diamond Ring.
Someone
Okay, one last singer, we'll be done today. On the other end of the spectrum was a guy that maybe had absolutely the best voice in the 1960s, Tom Jones. Tom Jones was Thomas Jones Woodward, came from Wales, South Wales. People have said he had the best voice of any singer of the era, and he very well may have. He was described as a shapeshifter, someone who could slide from soulful rasp to prop crooner with a voice as husky as it was pretty. His career took off in 1964 when he signed with Decca Records, and they recorded a song called It's Not Unusual, which reached #1 in the United Kingdom. Then, of course, he got part of the British invasion, came to America, 1965. He followed that up with What's New Pussycat, as well as James Bond theme song, Thunderball. He was just absolutely an amazing singer and had a whole lot of really big hits. But when the popularity of the British invasion kind of began to die down, his manager said, we need to reshape you into a different image. So he went more into a crooner type image, into more of a Las Vegas showman. He would end up having 19 top 40 hits, including Green Green Grass of Home, Delilah, She's a Lady. His popularity was just absolutely huge. Ended up playing for years in Las Vegas, where he had extended residencies. Jones still records. He's very old now, obviously. Does a lot of Christian theme songs, believe it or not. Resides in the UK. Never been admitted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but he had been knighted by the late Queen Elizabeth. So let's listen to him sing his big #1 song. This is when he was on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1968. It's Not Unusual. Fantastic voice, folks.
Here is from Wales, Tom Jones, and he's magnificent.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. It's not unusual to have fun with anyone. But when I see you hanging about with anyone, it's not unusual. It happens every day. No matter what you say, you find it happen all the time. And then love can never do what you want to do. Why can't this crazy love be mine? Oh, it's not unusual to be mad with anyone. It's not unusual to be sad with anyone. But if I ever find that you changed at any time, it's not unusual to find that I'm in love with you. Oh, 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 oh.
Okay. Well, I can't end 1965 without mentioning Alan Freed. Alan Freed, of course, is the man that started all this rock and roll stuff. He's the one that coined the term. He died in January 1965. Remember, Alan Freed was been called the father of rock and roll. He became the primary target of the payola scandal later because of the unethical practices, which, by the way, folks, was industry-wide. He wasn't doing anything more than anybody else was. But he's the guy, he was the poster child for all that. So he ended up with the one that got his hands slapped, found guilty of commercial bribery. Nobody would touch him. You know, he was a done man in 1962. 1964, he was indicted for federal grand jury on tax evasion, ordered to pay $38,000 in back taxes, and his life just absolutely went downhill. Like I said, no one would touch him. He had physical ailments. Ended up dying in 1965, 43 years old, died from uremia, cirrhosis of the liver. And even his death was dramatic. He initially was interred at his family cemetery in New York, and his daughter brought his ashes to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2002 and just put them on a stand there and said, here's his ashes. No one knew what to do. I mean, the guy was the one that created rock and roll. He was the man, you know. And so they left him there until 2014. And finally, the people at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame called his son and said, "You've got to come get his ashes. We don't want him in here anymore. He's tainted, you know." So his son took him to a cemetery and buried him in a Cleveland, Ohio cemetery where he got his start and where he coined rock and roll. And yeah, that's where his remains are today. His contribution to rock and roll, according to one source, was to tap into and promote the emerging black musical styles of the 1950s to a white mainstream audience, and he was a vital step in rock's dominance over American culture. He probably had as much to do with rock and roll as anybody ever. So that's where we're going to leave it today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Next week, we're going to see what was happening out there in country music, because even though country music had taken a huge hit as a result of the British invasion, there were some big things going on in country music. So that's where we'll be next week. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be glad to see you then. Hello, Donna.
Thanks, Tony. See you next
Okay,
week.
thank you. Bye-bye.